All right, you're good.
All righty. Sounds good. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody's been doing well. We'll start things off with a roll call. Chris.
Here.
Chris Boat, okay. Matthew Stevens, that's me. I'm here. Lynn Schumel.
I don't see Lynn, nor have we heard from her, but did she indicate she was gonna be traveling?
I don't think so. But yeah, I haven't heard anything from her.
Did she contact you, Matt?
I have not heard anything. All righty. And let's see, we'll go through the rest and then check back and see if she's maybe just a few minutes behind. Tina?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello. All right, and Cosette?
Present.
Cool, cool. Lisa?
Oops, here.
Yep. Hello. And Michaela?
Here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, and we'll check back. Has Lynn shown up yet by chance? Do you see, or I don't see her in the list here, so and yeah, I have not heard anything. So I don't know. We'll have to reach out and maybe see if time isn't working, or I forget, was she having trouble the last couple times as well because of the time, or no, she was here.
Yeah, she was here. I vaguely recall that in the past she's had travel plans.
Yeah, she may have
Yeah.
mentioned enough about it.
So we can revisit this next time after we get a confirmation if she had included a need to travel.
Yep.
At the last meeting.
All righty. And I forget, is her absence something we kind of need to vote on, or?
Yeah, absences would be voted on if
Yeah.
they were going to be excused. Otherwise, they would not be an excused absence. So we talked about that a little bit as part of the policies and procedures, because there's a certain number of meetings each year that someone can miss that are unexcused. In other words, they did not provide advance notification of their inability to attend.
Yep. Yep, and I have not heard anything, so this would, but she may have mentioned it a couple times, but I don't see anything in the minutes from before about it. But I guess so this would just be considered unexcused then?
It would be considered unexcused unless you wanted to defer and send an inquiry to her and then follow up at the next meeting before you adopt the minutes.
Yeah,
I make a motion that we defer calling it. We defer calling it an unexcused absence at this time, and since we're just getting started, especially, and just kind of getting our feet under us, and that we put that in the record that it is an excused absence, and we'll just follow up with her on the details of that.
Perfect. We can send an email as soon as the meeting's over. And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, perfect. And all in favor of deferring and sending an inquiry to see what's kind of going on and bring it up at the next meeting.
Is there any more discussion though? Nobody else had any other input? Okay. I say aye. Did someone?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Not somebody's. Okay.
And I'm on my phone, so I can't quite see everybody's screen at the same time here, so. Let's see. All right. And,
Give a flag.
No.
all right, it sounds like that was approved, and I will send an email out to Lynn as soon as the meeting's over to kind of just see what's going on, and we'll also discuss it moving forward. And now we have the Pledge of Allegiance, so I don't know if we have I know you're having technical issues. I don't want to ask you to bring a flag up or anything, so we'll just kind of jump right into the Pledge of Allegiance. Perfect. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
States of
of
America,
America,
To
and
the
to the republic
for
for
which
which
it stands,
stands one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
Liberty.
liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Good job.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah. Let's get back to.
Okay. And yeah, it looks like the only thing we really have on the agenda today is down under workshops. Unless anybody has anything they'd like to add to the agenda or anything like that, or any amendments or anything prior to that. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to the agenda or anything? All right, I don't hear anything, so we will jump right back down into the downtown revitalization funds discussion and kind of see where we're.
We need to approve the agenda and the
Oh,
minutes.
Matt, we'll need to get a motion to approve the agenda in a second before moving into the body of today's meeting.
Yep. Sorry about that. I'm a little bit tired. I've worked midnight, so I should actually be in bed right now. I apologize.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Nope, you're good. Thank you for keeping me in track.
I move to approve today's agenda.
All right, thank you. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. And all in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting?
Aye.
Aye. I heard 3.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Sounds like that was unanimous, and we also need to get approval of the minutes that were also attached to the package that was sent out. And has everybody had a chance to kind of read over the minutes and make sure they were accurate as they remember? Or
I would just like to get Cosette's name spelled correctly. There's an extra E in there, and it's not supposed to be. I used to, those kind of things stick out at me, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Which line are you looking at?
E.
It's from the,
Oh,
It's-
yeah, and under roll call. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, my bad.
Yep.
Sorry,
No worries.
Josette. I'll
That's
take
okay.
care.
Thank
Yep.
no,
Thank you.
All righty. And everything looked accurate as far as I remember. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
Somebody's gonna make a motion. Oh, we got another misspell too, but that's all right.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
All right, thank you very much. Do we
I
have a,
second it.
all right, perfect, thank you. And all in favor of approving the minutes from February 7th meeting? Aye,
Aye.
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 perfect.
Aye.
Thank you so much. And it sounds like that was unanimous. And on to public comments. Have we received any public comments, or is there anybody down there that wants to make any comments or anything? I'm attending Zoom, so I'm not sure if anybody's down there or not, but
We have not received any public comments, and there are no members of the public here at this time.
all right, perfect. Thank you so much. No public hearings or action items today. And into workshops, continuing the downtown revitalization funds discussion.
Thank you. This is Heather. Just one thing to report. We did hear back from the Department of Transportation. They did give us the specifications for the cabinet for the graphic wrap, and those were specifications were forwarded to Chris. We also heard about a week later that WashDOT plans to replace that cabinet this summer with the same size cabinet. And so they're recommending that the wrap not occur until the end of the summer, because they've actually got 17 cabinets in the region that they're replacing, and they don't have an exact date of when that cabinet will be changed out. So just potentially a timing issue of when it would occur.
Yeah, no, thank you for that update.
Do we know the dimensions of the new boxes?
Yes, I gave the dimensions to Chris, because Chris had volunteered to help organize that for the proposal phase,
Okay,
a template.
But the new one is going to be the exact same size, right? Or
Yes,
you sent me.
that's it. Yeah, it's supposed to be the exact same size as what I sent to you.
Perfect.
The next was a couple of items that were discussed, which had to do with starting a draft solicitation for artists. And that was on the last page of the packet that you received. Zach put together both a draft solicitation, and the second part was a little bit of a clip of like a history of the downtown to assist artists in orienting potentially to the imagery that might be sought. And both of those are here for your review in the packet.
Okay,
It's up on the screen. If you can see a
Yep.
document viewer behind the people's faces. I believe there was also some discussion of developing a tagline potentially to go along with this.
yeah, I remember that discussion was happening, and I think we were all supposed to kind of bring a couple of them together, maybe type them into the chat line, see if they fit the call for what we're going for, and something like that, if I remember correctly. But yes, Lisa?
we do that. So yeah, if I could make some suggestions, generally what I do when I'm kind of doing these brainstorming things, especially coming up for a tagline for say an article or you know, a logo or whatever it is. The first thing I do is start coming up, especially when there's brainstorming and you've got other people with you, start coming up with some ideas that kind say what Airway Heights is, or what comes to mind, what Airway, you know, when you think of Airway Heights, or what kind of things you want to highlight about Airway Heights. And as I myself did some research in the last month or so about, well, for instance, I looked for resources for photos, for some historical photos. There's really not a lot out there. There's, you know, there's history.org, Airway Heights itself, the Air Force Base, you can get online and download high-res photos, you know, but they're basically all about the Air Force Base. There's some really cool ones of kids, et cetera, like that could be more general, that could be used. But, you know, as far as usefulness in the resource part of it, I'm thinking maybe, like I said last time, always the thing that we want to do is focus on the historical side of it, because we're kind of thinking in a new way about Airway Heights. So one of the things I did when I was, and this will just hopefully give somebody some ideas to springboard from, but some ideas that I came up, just words, these are just words, not phrases really, is like best sunsets, great life, diverse, thriving, growing, more to offer, get fit, get fun, get food, fair weather for the most part. That's a dicey one. Especially we've gotten more snow than anybody out here. Let's see, more to offer, boost up, high plains, bigger than you think. Now these are just dumb ideas to just start off of: play, live, work. And that actually came from a letter that somebody wrote about the city. Think bigger, soar, glide. So those are just some words I can throw out there. What does everybody else think, or has anybody else come up with?
Yeah, I think those are all great, Lisa. And yeah, keywords and such, I think are great. And you're right, the sunsets out there are immaculate. And yeah, I was saying, I had like West Plains, Best Plains, stuff like that. And I like the SOAR one too, because it ties into the Air Force Base and that history as well.
I like that. West Plains, Best Plains. That's pretty good.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
I also like that one too. West Plains, Best Plains. That does.
You know, I was thinking too, like if we, you know, when you go to Reno, I don't know if anybody's ever been to Reno, but they have this big thing that overspreads the city, you know, biggest little city on earth or whatever it is. And you know, I thought about that. I thought, well, if we were to put up something permanent and we wanted people to stop and go, hey, actually, yeah, there's a city here and food, and maybe we should stop and enjoy some breakfast or whatever it is, that we wouldn't have to have something as expensive as a big overarching whatever that we have to worry about military trucks getting by, but we could have something aside and kind of overarches one way or the other that has this slogan on it, if you will, or has some kind of theme on it that kind of sets it apart. And yeah, this whole statement could be part of it. West Plains, Best Plains, although depending on the way you look at it and how you did it, you know, you'd want to see it from anyway.
Yeah, you could almost have a digital screen in there and just have it kind of cycle those keywords through, and so it changes up and stuff like that too. And
well, then I was going to ask about that, because like the sign coming into Airway Heights, as far as maintenance goes, like it used to shift colors, and then I don't think it shifts colors now, right? I don't know, you know, how that ties in with the city budget for keeping, you know, lighted installments like that operational and program else. So I guess I was thinking of something a little more low tech, but that's a great idea.
Yeah. Yep. And what does everyone else think? Does anyone else have some keywords or anything that? I love that one, Michaela. Airway Heights.
What was the one? Did you?
Ooh.
Did Michaela, did you say something to Michaela?
Michaela,
I put it in the chat.
Yeah, she typed something in. It said Airway Heights, where our roots take flight, I believe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, just, you know, thinking about like how we can do sort of the past and the roots of Airway Heights with also, you know, the Air Force Base is big, but kind of to combine both of it. so that we're not just the Air Force Base, because, you know, we're much more than that, right?
Right.
Yeah,
There's more here. Yeah, we soar together. I like that too. Well, and also I hope we don't feel like we have to like define something or come up with something right this minute, because a lot of times the best ideas take a little time to develop and ferment. I'm sure Chris would probably agree with me that the first idea you come up with is often not always the best one, especially when it comes to artwork. And as much as you want to, I'm telling you, as much as you want it to, you're like, okay, this is right? And then you get doing it, it's like, no, this isn't going to work. And the process is actually what makes it so wonderful. So I'm hoping that we're not going to shortchange that.
oh, absolutely. And I think now with the cabinet being replaced this summer and the wrap going on after that, we have plenty of brainstorming time to make sure the theme's really solid and tangible and visible to the community. So
Maybe we can take these ideas and just kind of let them gestate a little bit and then come back next month and see. What we
Yeah.
got.
If Zach, I don't know if we can, if we have a Google document that we could access pretty easily, and then Lisa, you can just throw all those in there.
yeah,
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And just so we can all kind of visually,
collectively build on it. Yeah.
yeah.
And then when we come
Yeah.
back together next time, maybe have something
Everything
better.
that creates
Vote on
public
it, yeah.
record, it has to
That'd be great.
Great idea, Chris. Yeah.
So I just want to mention that everything that you create is a public record and has to be retained. So when we use something like Google Docs for sharing, we'll have to make sure we're downloading and keeping that for your records as part of your meeting minutes. So I guess the idea is, you know, just as you're creative and adding to it, that we make sure that we kind of keep it within that format.
Okay.
Right. Do you see any pitfalls or any things that we should be careful of?
Probably just outright deleting or eliminating anything that gets added to it, because if you're doing it during these meetings, you're not
Okay.
yeah, so that would be the important part, or you're just adding to it as it's a file system. So, you know, not going through and chatting outside of this meeting
Well,
through that forum, or deleting somebody else's material.
Right. It would be like an email though, where you were answering a group a chain. No, it isn't like that. Okay.
No, because you're subject to open public meeting requirements. So no, you cannot chat or work outside these meetings. Like so that's why I'm kind of trying to draw this. If you want to just go deposit material in there and then bring it back for the next meeting to discuss,
Yeah.
you can do that, but you're not able to go in and chat, have conversations, eliminate work, refine the proposals inside that format, because you're actually an advisory body and subject to those open meeting requirements.
Okay.
So the goal would be to use these meetings as much as possible for your collaboration, your consensus building, you're kind of really gelling those ideas as well. But yeah, the Google Doc is a great place to like drop all that stuff so you can look at it.
Yeah. And then hopefully, Heather, like after we all look at that this next month, then we can all come back and in this meeting, we can vote on like the direction that we want to go publicly.
Yeah.
Definitely. Exactly. And refine, refine the ideas.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, boy, it's gonna be difficult. Try to make sure we don't mess anything up. That only because discussions tend to be so organic that, and honestly, creative discussions are always organic. So it's the regulatory side tends to slow it down a little bit.
Well, the goal here, I think, is to have, a source where you can drop things into and take a look at, And then, you can individually build on it. So the only difference, Lisa, is you're not discussing, debating the actual pieces that people are using that as a drop box for. That's what the meetings are for.
No, I agree. No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so we can create a Google Doc, or if everybody has access to that Google Drive, so feel free and just create a Google Doc and drop your ideas in. Before I work on the next meeting minutes, I'll go grab everything in there and include it, and then we can have discussion next month on that.
Okay. So what I'll do then is I'll just go ahead and drop in there from these notes what we already or what I threw in there and what you guys threw in there, and then we'll just go from there. We'll make it a starting point to give us some ideas to springboard from.
Yeah.
Or, I
Absolutely.
mean, already have may already be here. So.
And just to clarify, like, this is just general visual guidance for the artist, right? I mean, they don't have to incorporate necessarily these terms or these words in their design, right?
Right.
Well, so the goal, as I understand it, is you're wanting to update this call to artist sheet with potentially a catchphrase that might help kind of summarize contextually Airway Heights. Plus you have, and today we'll go through this document to look at the other topical elements of it that help guide the direction of the artist in the formatting and the description of their vision for the art piece.
I would also suggest that we get some mileage out of this, because if we come up with a really good theme, like we were discussing earlier, it's going to be useful for bringing everything together that we do in the future in a lot of ways. It'll be, kind of the thing that we go forward with in terms of our directions as far as how we, otherwise it's going to be kind of fractured, right? If we kind of change. So we're trying to develop, because Airway Heights is already a little bit fractured looking. We're trying to develop kind of a cohesiveness about it that make people want to stop and stay for a while. So, looking a little more tied together, and like we've really got a vision and a mission like we talked about in our initial meetings would really help, I think. So if on those terms, we'll probably come up with something that will be a lot useful down the road.
And that's a good point, Lisa. You're talking about maybe creating a brand moving forward for our goal. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, yes. I mean, our goal as far as Art Commission is to enhance the artistic and creative side of Airway Heights, if I were to summarize it in a very small mission statement or vision statement. But our mission is really to just promote that and promote the good things about Airway Heights. And so that's what we're doing here with this when we're coming up with these words. And I guess by tying it all together, making sure that what we first start with is kind of tied into this bigger vision of what we have in the future for what we want Airway Heights to be perceived as. It's going to help us a lot when we make these decisions about how to move forward with projects or whatever we do. We were talking about a farmer's market too, and how we're going to, what kind of presence we have there. This would definitely help with that, because then you've already got kind of a theme for banners or whatever we want to do to show a presence there as far as our interest in the community.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts anyway.
Do you want to move over to reviewing the call for artists sheet?
Yeah.
The overview, do you want to just go through that, Zach?
Yeah. So the language here is a draft. It was designed to give you guys a place to start, essentially, to review. We talked about a historical narrative, which is going to be more the second piece here, but it's included all within this this outline here. So obviously we don't have a submission date yet. The overview is a brief description of what we're looking for, which is just one box located on South Lawson and Airway Heights. Sorry, it's half my screen is covered with your faces, so I apologize. The discussion of the artist being awarded $500 per design for per box design, which is what we agreed upon last meeting. And then that narrative, which discusses a little bit about the Galena Air Depot, the founding of Airway Heights, some of the unique geological features of Channel Scablands and the Great Missoula Flood, followed by Fairchild Air Force Base and Spokane International Airport, the impact of the Kalispell and Spokane tribes, and then kind of a more contemporary number, which is about 12,000, which is right where the city population is today. The second piece was the description of the eligibility. We did have a discussion last week about who we wanted in terms of geographic location for artists. And this is essentially just a what I would consider the West Plains region, but specifically calling out Fairchild Air Force Base as well, just because it's sometimes not generally included within the West Plains. So yeah, take a quick look at that. And then again, city, region, personally contact, and expiration. So I think it definitely needs some refinement and it needs some eyes on it. But again, it was designed to give everybody a place to start based on our comments from last meeting.
I guess one really quick question, do you want to limit artists to one design per submission? Is that, or can an artist submit more than one design?
I personally don't see why they couldn't submit more than one design. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly we're only going to choose one. And especially for the first time, you often have lower submissions, a lower submission rate for the first time you do anything. So this might just give us more options to choose from if we're like, hey, submit what you want and we'll choose from there, unless it got ridiculous. But I don't think it would for the first time.
Yeah, I agree. We did this, we did a project similar to this up in Pend Oreille County and on the, with the Kalispell tribe boundaries. And we had submissions, each submission contained 4 different designs. And we were able to actually choose, there was 2 artists that we chose. We liked a portion of one image, but then we also liked another part of an image. So that artist was able to combine both of those ideas to make one wrap, which, pretty much pretty much, I think, defined what we're looking for to put on those utility boxes.
Well, I think that's a really good point, both to allow for greater number of designs to be submitted per artist, but that kind of gets a little bit to the design guidelines, which is the Arts Commission will review and submit a winning design. Did you want to put some language in there reserving the ability to select a concept and then work with an artist on a final design? Otherwise, it does say literally one of the designs that's there.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to leave us open to that, that fact, because we might see a piece that we really like the ideas or the themes, but it needs to be tweaked a little bit. So to allow us that sort of tweaking ability to work with an artist, I think is probably a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was just a suggestion. And, it was the first time that we had ever done a project like that. And so it was a learning process for us also. It's like, hey, wait a minute. Okay, we like this, although this really doesn't fit with what we're trying to get. But these 2 combined ideas, I think, fit more where we're heading. And it was more, and the design was able to be to where it was, I guess, representative of the whole entire project and of Pend Oreille County. And so if we're going to have this as like revitalizing and getting that awareness for Airway Heights, we want something that's not going to be outdated or just lose that value.
So the only thing I'm sorry, was somebody else going to talk? Okay, the only thing I would say about that, as somebody who's been in the field for 35 years now, is that we're only offering $500 for this. And so what we're doing when we're asking an artist to go back and rethink this and redesign it and come up with another thing, it's like you're asking them to come up, and if they've already come up with 4, you're asking them to spend more time for $500 to come up with something. So I caution us from and then also as an artist, I can tell you that if I'm starting a job with somebody and just say to come up with a logo, which is probably one of the hardest things I ever have to do, to come up with a mark for somebody, this process of going through this with them before I come up with the design is crucial. I have to sit down with them, figure out what they want. What is the use? How is it? What are their thoughts? What is the client's thoughts on this? How is it going to be used? So that I get all of that away before I work on that thing, because you can spend hours and hours and hours going through this process and never actually get there when you've got a client that says, well, I kind of like this, but I don't like that. Well, it would have been great to know that before I spent the hours it took to finalize this piece, because it takes a lot of time to finalize something for somebody to present as a piece of artwork in this kind of a context. So just coming from that perspective, I'm just throwing in my 2 cents worth there. I just caution us on being too much in the control side of it, just letting the artist have the freedom of coming up with something and going, that looks great, that's going to work, or, make a couple little tweaks they might need to do to make it work. But other than that, we let it go we let them run with it.
I think this was just more about making sure that the language in the call just gives us as the Arts Commission the ability. We're not saying like, we would want to mesh, an artist's different pieces, just to, I think, once we have it down in writing, like that's kind of what we're stuck to abiding by. So the more language that gives us a little wiggle room is probably better, so that we don't back ourselves into a corner type of thing.
I agree.
And we probably will just choose. I mean, the chances are we'll find a great piece and we'll be like, this is it, this is the one. But I always like having that extra, like, what if the piece was perfect, but the colors were just off and they weren't going to work, or, so having the language to just give us a little tweaking ability. When I create films, I mean, it's the same thing where like somebody will come in and they'll be like, I love this, but this scene, you got to edit this scene, right? And I'm like, but you go in and you just tweak hopefully the one thing, but not necessarily totally redoing something,
Right. And that wasn't a call to request, 4 different pieces from each artist. It would just allow, like you said, the language to be to where they could submit, more than just one piece.
Okay, so perhaps some language that just indicates that more than one design for artists will be accepted, and that the commission will review the submissions and select a winning artist with a preferred design.
Do we want to have a hard cap on the number of designs can be submitted? Do you want to, they've been thrown for a lot?
That was my question. Yeah.
Well, and that's why we limited it to 4.
Yeah. And here's the thing, no artist is going to do 10 pieces for a maybe. You know what I'm saying? It's almost self-limiting into what each individual artist is willing to, to create and understand that they're probably, odds are you don't get chosen. So I can just imagine as an artist, we're not gonna, nobody's gonna.
And no artist did submit up to 4. They did submit, I think maybe 2. I think one did submit 3, but the majority of them did submit 2 pieces.
So did you have a number in mind or did you want to just leave it open?
Why don't you say up to 4? Because that sounds good.
Yeah. 4 sounds good.
Just say up to.
I mean, what does everybody else think?
Yeah, I would definitely not go more than 4. But
Mm. So the only way you're gonna modify the language about how we submit, like just submit to commission members for review, how did you word that? Because right now we just say, we'll review the commissions and select the winning design, or submissions and select the winning design. So you said submitted to.
So the recommended language was submit, and the Arts Commission will select winning artists with design concept.
Okay.
Because I think that there is a really good point that Michaela made with regards to that there could be things like tweaking color
Oh, yeah.
so
No,
that it would, appear well on that kind of platform. So
right.
that might soften the language to help you work with. So if let's say the concept was a coin, the images of a coin. I mean, there's a lot of pieces there you can work with the artist about the coin that's in the design. Is it silver? Is it gold? Is it copper?
Mhm.
And I purposely used a really obtuse kind of image to listen to. Like, you don't have to love or hate the idea of a coin.
Let's see, concept usability. I don't know how you'd say that. Okay.
So the next section of this really talks about the history, and it's a big overview. There's not a lot in here about kind of where the downtown is. So that might be something that an artist would be looking for. Like, where's your downtown? Like, help me understand where this is at. Like, it's between Lawson and Lindstrom along US 2 and partially at King Street. Or we might want to just do a little bit of like, here's where it's at. So if they decide to look or look at Google Maps, so that it kind of helps orient them in addition to the imagery. So it's just a suggestion you might want to consider in there.
I have one question about where it says West Plains region. Like, is that a clearly defined, like, does Reardon count? Does Davenport count? Or is it just limiting to these 5 places that we got here?
For those that work in government, it's probably better defined as what the West Plains region is, because there's been several studies that have gone out and included elements of the West Plains. But in all honesty, 4 Lakes and Cheney is probably beyond the quote unquote study area. So it often is a big conversation, like what's the boundary to be included. And Reardon and even Davenport, it's a really good question. Like, are they part of the West Plains? For example, we know that Spokane tribal members come into this community often to do their shopping rather than going all the way into Spokane. Are they part of our region when we think about the scope? But I think the goal is to identify who might be eligible for submitting for this, and it might be something we need to grapple with a little bit more to help identify where we hope to have the artists from, because there's a lot of conversation at the last meeting of trying to get kind of more local community members to submit.
Because I'm just wondering, if we hypothetically do get a submission from Reardon, are we going to toss it out?
Well, as this reads right now, I mean, if we got a submission from Western Spokane, like Pillar Rock, that wouldn't qualify because they're technically not within the city limits or within Spokane's not included in the West Plains at all.
Yeah, that's a really good point, which is this enough for you to decide who's eligible and who's not for submission, or do you want to call it Spokane County?
Well, actually, if you did Spokane County, wouldn't that include like Spokane Falls Community College where they have the graphic design program, that I grew up with, or is
Yeah.
it,
But it would
You can-
also include like Deer Park and,
Uh-huh.
Colbert, like, we're kind of getting away, like, I like that, Airway Heights, I think Cheney, just because, I mean, if you live out here, you go to Cheney. But I think when we were talking about, the tribal members, I think we need to have something in there that's, I mean, because we're on tribal land and it kind of feels like we should at least have the allowance for tribal members to submit to this, even if they're not necessarily like living here at the moment, like you were saying, that they would come in for shopping, I don't know, but like Spokane County, that we're getting, like the Valley and everywhere else. And they have a lot of organizations in Spokane that they can already apply for grants and stuff that people out here aren't necessarily eligible for. So that's part of it too,
So let's see. What do we have? And we do have some Spokane addresses, like I'm looking at businesses out in this West Plains area. I'm looking at the West Plains Chamber org directory. And there's a lot of businesses that you would say are in Spokane County, like the ones on Flint Road and a lot. So I'm not saying that they come from businesses. I'm just saying that the area that's considered West Plains incorporates a lot of these other outlying areas. So I don't know, because there are a lot of, I'm thinking about Flint Road and even a little further afield. I guess we should just, I mean, is it Airway Heights City proper, and does it go? I don't know. Well, now we start to get into some.
Because like, I think you're talking about Geiger Heights, which I consider West Plains, because they're Spokane. I lived in Geiger Heights. And so it's a Spokane address, but everything you do is in the West Plains anyway. And the school that you're going to is Cheney School District, which is, the same school district most. So like, I feel like Geiger Heights should be included in that. And, because that goes to, it's the old base housing, and then it goes down to Cheney Spokane Road and then out to Cheney. Like that feels like it's part of us.
But then again, how are you going to say, well, you live over too close to, well, I guess Deer Park would be a no-brainer, but you know what I'm saying? But we don't, those lines are a little ambiguous, I think. So I don't know. That makes it a little harder. I think perhaps we have a pretty broad, as long as it depends on how we can advertise it too. See, that's the other thing. I was looking at the publications in and around the area. Where would we actually put these little calls for art and calls for artists and entries? That's also something I'm not real clear on. Because that's going to determine, because you've got like the Cheney Free Press, and as far as publications go, I was looking around, at that too, at what we've got available in the area. If we were to put some kind of call for entries in, where would we put it? And I think of a few things, but what is the city? Where are we at with that?
Well, typically we would put it on our Facebook for Airway Heights. We would put it in our quarterly newsletter, the timing worked out, which goes out to membership from the rec center, business licenses, we have email accounts for, utility accounts we have emails for, so that hits residents and businesses within Airway Heights. Then beyond that, we certainly could talk about doing an ad. We would need to look at where that would be and start talking about the costs of that and where that funding would come from. So if you wanted something from the Cheney Free Press, they won't talk to us until we, kind of get an idea of, is it going to be certainly all familiar with this, is going to be one column, 1 inch tall, 2 inch tall as a graphic. There could be some other forms that we share through. So if we partnered with Spokane Arts, they may be willing to put that out to their artist lists as well. They have a pretty extensive catalog of artists by different type of medium that they specialize in. So those are just a
Well-
couple off the top.
We could put it out to the college, actually, if we just targeted the college specifically, and just said, we put this is out for their graphic design and illustration program, fine arts program.
Well, is the Spokane Falls part of your area for call, or do they have to physically live in the West Plains?
That's what I'm
Like
saying. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, obviously Eastern and their art department and their graphic design departments is a real easy to reach out there. And I know that they've got a lot of students there. And even if they're, I mean, they're all they're living on campus, most of them, or they live here in Airway Heights, because I see a lot of them here too. But there's things like there's a public Spokane radio show that just talks about arts and artists. Like there's a lot of media opportunities that would probably be free to just put out the call and to talk about the project and what we're doing. It's, it's not that hard to kind of actually get the word out there once we have it finalized. There's a bunch of sort of different free options. Obviously Facebook, a lot of the younger artists are on social media. I'm less worried about getting it out to the right people as it is just trying to, get everything down. Because once we have that done, I think we can get it out to the right people.
We just have to define it for our public records, I guess.
Well, I think this is getting back to the eligibility. So, if you get an artist submission, how do you determine whether they're qualified?
So just, this is just my 2 cents, but I think if it says West Plains region, I think we as a committee are able to define what that means, right? Like it doesn't necessarily have to be a public.
You need to be transparent so that the
Well,
applicant.
absolutely. But even if we draw the boundaries and have a map and saying, if you live within these boundaries, you're able to submit, basically, right?
Right, you just can't do it on the fly. And
No,
that's what we're trying to aim toward, is that the call for artists is transparent enough so that someone isn't calling here saying, I don't know whether I'm in the West Plains area, because our beginning of our conversation is it's not a government geographically defined boundary. So,
but
that's
in
one of the reasons we talked about a geographic boundary. If you'd like to draw a map to do that, we could certainly
Yeah.
work on it.
that's exactly what I was thinking, drawing a map and then having it be included in this submission process. Like something that we all agree on, like Michaela was saying, Geiger Heights, that feels like West Plains, or even expanding as far as Well Pennant, like we were talking about, it's like, is that West Plains, I just want to, and kind of what we were talking about as well, like, this is giving more opportunity to folks that aren't necessarily in the Spokane area, who don't usually get a chance at a lot of these type of things too. So that's as much as we can do for those smaller communities, I think the better as well. That's just my 2 cents, but.
Well, also too, I believe it would give the artist more ownership of, what they're providing and to this, for this project. I think that's how I envision it, is, truly getting somebody from this area and being able to, have it highlighted, for themselves and for their families and friends within the community.
Mhm.
I don't think we've heard from Cosette.
Yeah, I think, what about just, would it be simplify the matter if it was just stated that all individuals living within a certain mile radius of City Hall? Would that help at all or simplify it as opposed to naming each region? And then maybe putting a special addendum in terms of making sure it's accessible to the tribes as well?
Well, from a mileage standpoint, the city of Spokane is really close. I mean, the corporate boundaries is right at the Deer Heights roundabout. So that's only a couple miles down the road.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to have Cheney and Medical Lake, that's gonna be, significantly further away than using a mile marker boundary.
Yeah, I really like Chris's idea. I think we need a map and that we can physically map out and be like, okay, these smaller communities, they're close enough to us. This is, and that way, having I like visual stuff. So having a visual map is gonna like kill a lot of questions because artists are going to be able to look at the map. Oh, I live inside the boundary. I don't live inside the boundary. And the easier we make it for the artist, the easier it's going to be on all of us, the less questions we'll all get. So I think, versus mileage or even cities or anything, an actual map with boundaries is probably going to be our best bet just for clarity and transparency for everybody.
Well, that includes the city of Spokane.
Mhm.
Well, since Zach is our GIS specialist, I mean, we make a suggestion that we work on a map boundary that could start with remember I mentioned that there was a geographic boundary that we use for governments. One of them was used for a study that was done a couple of years ago for DOT. We can start with that because it does include Cheney Medical Lake, and then cut out the city of Spokane from that map. And that's a pretty easy geography map to create. The tougher part is, do you want to take all of the territory, and how do you define how much territory that is to go to Reardon, or even Davenport, but we can make sure that portions of the unincorporated, as in not in the city of Spokane portion of areas around here, are included. And come back with a draft around that. And then you can add language to maybe identify things like, tribal participation, specifically, and see if it might be a combination of a map and a narrative that could help define your call area. Does that work?
I think that
Okay.
I think that'll work great. That saves us from, that saves me from having to do it.
Well, it sounds like a great starting point for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely.
And you guys can make modifications. And the great part is, Jack is a genius at geographic information system, and he can.
Well, we've already defined it. That was like through block group analysis. So I might already have something sitting around. We can just pick it up. So
That would work. Okay. All
yeah, so
right.
it's cross jurisdictional, which helps too. And yeah.
And would we be able to modify that, Zach, to include
Oh, yeah.
more areas, or is that just going to be this map and then a few other places listed?
So I
below?
previously worked on a project where we made a definition of West Plains and made a map of that definition. So I can provide that for you, and then you can do whatever you want. It's just a starting point. So,
Okay,
but there was some analysis put into why we made that boundary. I just don't remember what it was. So I just need to look at it again. So.
Let's see. Okay, so just kind of getting me back to the design guidelines or guidance. Were there other things that you wanted to be included besides like a geographic area of the downtown? that should be available as part of consideration of an artist? And that's great. Missoula floods. Floods.
Yeah.
Remember when you didn't have time to review?
It's my bad. Well, this isn't gonna be your last chance to take a look at this, so we can
Yeah.
have a further refinement of this going on through the next meeting. And I just want to point out that there were some things in here that Zach added that are probably appropriate, that we should probably talk about it, which is that we need to pursue it to the public arts code. We need to identify a little bit about what happens with the art. You know, like there's some outlines of basically the rights to the art are part of this process, the use of it, you know, for public imagery. And it also indicates limitations such as no advertising, sexual content, violent content, that cannot be unsuitable. Maybe we should reverse that and say suitable for all ages. Doesn't convey political partisanship. So those are just some kind of bumpers, I guess, to put onto the piece.
That makes sense. Zach, I know that either last or the time before, but you presented to us the diversity in Airway Heights. Like, is there something in the language that can speak to that or something along those lines? I'm not sure how you would.
Yeah, I think I said diversity in there somewhere. It didn't get specific, but I mean, we can expand upon the design guidance, that kind of history there. We're already going to add some additional language specifying the downtown area, but I can also discuss the population a little bit there and talk about the diversity. So I can get that drafted for you for next month.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like just talking about the history of the cultures that have been in Airway Heights in the past and things like that, and currently, you know, so that'd be cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. One of the things we might want to put on here is the amount of time that they have to respond, and that's going to help us kind of count backward on an overall schedule. So does anyone have any thoughts on a reasonable amount of time for a call for artist designs?
We should probably already also decide when entries close, I guess, or when they'll be notified, or, you know, however we want to do that. Did we have that anywhere else?
No, it's up at the top of the document.
It
So
is.
to be-
I'm sorry. Read
So it's
the mission. Okay.
deadline and
Oh, it expires. That's what you have. Okay.
so that we're kind of working backwards. So how long do you want to have submissions open for? Is like 30 days reasonable?
If this is just my 2 cents as a creative, if it can possibly be 60 days, just to give everybody enough time to get their creative juices flowing, and especially if they want to submit more than one as well. So, and that stuff just takes time. So
That was my thoughts as well, was to bump that up to 60 if at all possible, but
What we'll need to do is drill down a little bit more with Spokane Arts, the person who actually works with the company, to have them printed and deployed. So pretending that,
Yeah,
like a September 1 placement, how long does it take the manufacturer to produce and install once it's been received? How much time do you want to give yourselves to do the jury review of pieces? And then from there, that'll help us understand the submission deadline, and then with a suggested 60-day opportunity for the design, that'll help us figure out what our opening date would be. So we'll work on that to get the manufacturer's needs for production. How long do you want to give yourselves to do a review? Just, do you think you could do it over one meeting, or do you think you need 2 meetings?
Well, for one thing, I think we have to be there in person.
yeah.
And it depends on how big they're making decisions.
So hypothetically, if all of us, if the committee was there in person that one day and we had all of the submissions out, do you think it's feasible for us as an arts commission to come up with like narrow it down to one choice of question? Or do we want to spread it out over multiple?
That's why I was saying up under my
Yeah.
breath, but how good we get at making decisions between now and then. If we're good at making decisions, we can whip that right out.
I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
gonna take at least 2 meetings, one meeting where we all just look at it and maybe discuss the pieces and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, realistically, it's not gonna happen in one meeting.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I agree. I'm wondering if that first meeting, we could narrow it down to the top 3. That way we have kind of some backup people if someone does pull their design or drop out or something like that.
So I will just put out
Reach out
there
on-
that you may want to consider, when you get to the point of debating, we can make the submission deadline, 1 or 2 weeks before your first meeting, so that you have them through your email in advance, so we won't be looking at them for the first time at the meeting. Another option would be to have more than one meeting in a month, so that you can do it, a little bit closer together for review and recommendation. So those are just a couple of.
Could we just call us the second one? Would that be kind of how it worked? We could just call a special meeting just for that.
Yes,
That
you
was
can.
my
We have to
thoughts.
advertise it. Yeah, you can have a special meeting, so a second meeting in the month, and we would do a notice of it.
How much lead time do we have to give notice before a second meeting? I mean, is it something that we have to decide at the time?
You don't need to decide right this moment, but the notice would be a week in
Yeah.
advance of them.
I just meant as far as once we set that process in motion, how much lead time do we have to do before we have to give a public notice? How much-
Technically, I believe it's 48 hours for the public notice, but we would need to know
Yeah, no, I understand.
earlier than that.
I didn't know. Longer than-
So while you're pondering that, we'll get some more information so we can help build an overall timeline, so we know, kind of when that we would need to issue this call for artists. I think we've gone through a lot of the elements of this sheet. One of the things that, well, as we stop there, is there anything else that you want to talk about for the sheet today? Okay.
I don't have anything
I
else.
think we're good now.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll bring back an updated draft at the next meeting with all of the elements and the map for you to take a look at. And then I would suggest that in addition for your next meeting, that the commission begin discussing your review criteria and how you're going to go through and score the submissions.
That's a good point.
And Heather, when you say that, that has to be included in here, you're looking for verbiage saying finalists will be selected based upon whatever, or?
You don't have to put it in here, but it's a good way to look back at your advertisement to see whether you're saying in your advertisement the things that you're looking for purposes of scoring. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like, one of the scoring criteria could be, how closely is it identifying with a downtown reinvigoration, let's say that's what it is. So did your scope talk a lot or in some way point out that this is a downtown revitalization project and that the goal is to use this just for revitalization? Like, are you looking at the two so that the artists are getting an opportunity to understand what the commission is looking for? Now you can put the criteria into a scoping sheet, so it's very transparent. So, it's going to be based on their past experience on similar submittals, how successful that their project has been, how closely it aligns with the focus of this proposal. I mean, that just kind of gives you an idea, but I think you need to consider how you're going to do it, because as we talk about doing 1 or 2 meetings, getting all the proposals, the next question is like, how are you going to agree? And is it something that you can communicate back to artists who are going to ask, how come my piece wasn't picked?
So I think what you're saying is that we kind of need to have a internal criteria and a general or broader one for the actual call to entries, because actually this would be really useful for when we come to vote for which piece we want. I was thinking through the process and going, well, yeah, actually, how are we going to end up voting for the ones we like? How are we going to come up with that one? Are we all just going to agree? Probably not. So we're going to have some kind of a idea of how we want that to move forward as we progress down that road. But we don't necessarily have to be asking them such specific questions, because we really are leaving our call for entries kind of broad as well. And it's going to require some investigation and to do discovery on the part of the artist to determine some of these questions that we're asking, but more closely in relation to the revitalization project and how we see it fitting into the broader picture. We have to have an internal idea of criteria that we're going to look at it.
Yes, it is a process to help you understand how you're going to go through this as a commission in order to score and to vote on it. But it also, when you reflect back on the call for artists, it helps you understand if you have enough information in there to help the artists all be successful and be transparent about what you're looking for.
Right.
Okay. Well, I believe that's pretty much everything that we had for you today was this proposal. So the revitalization project will come back onto your agenda for our next meeting. And with that, we can move through the remainder of the agenda today.
All right. And I think that was the main piece of the agenda today. Commissioner reports are up next. Did we have any commissioners that wanted to report anything or anything like that? I know I have one thing that I wanted to mention that I just found out about after the last meeting, and it's a little art box in the city hall building, but I don't know what options we might be able to bring into play moving forward. It wouldn't be in the downtown project or anything, of course, but might just be a fun project we can toss around moving forward as well. But does anybody have anything they would like to report, or commissioners?
When you, oh, go ahead. When you say an art box, what do you mean by that?
It's like a glass case. And I spoke with Xanth a little bit about the history of it, and it just kind of sits there to display art. I know there's been an artist that has had art on display in there for a while, and I was thinking we might be able to figure something out to get some stuff maybe cycled through and change the look of it every now and again. It's a city building, so it's not right in that downtown area, but it's not a huge glass case either. It's just a small, I don't know what the dimensions are of it, but it's not very big. But
It's probably 3 feet tall by about 3 feet wide, and probably about 12 to 15 inches deep. It's a glass case with glass shelves.
I was in the public library or in the county library getting my card last weekend. And of course, they have, it's a beautiful building. They have a beautiful, I think it's, when I asked the gal at the desk, it's a permanent installation inside, but outside in the anteroom or the entryway, there's also, like you're mentioning, a case on the wall with a changing display as well. And it sounds like, there's already, it's kind of cool because you think, well, yeah, there's already some starting places for us if we wanted to. We've already kind of got some starting places going. It's just a matter of what to springboard from. The other question, well, anyway, continue on and I'll ask afterwards. I had a couple more questions, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just kind of tossing it out there as a potential idea moving forward. It wasn't necessarily a report. It was just an observation. As I was there in person last time, I noticed it on the way out and wanted to bring it to everybody else's attention as well. So
Do you want us to add this to next meeting's agenda of talking about rotational art opportunities in the city?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Okay, we can do that.
So the other thing I was going to, if we could also, you said that you were going to talk about the revitalization project next time. Kind of an update. Is that what we're going to do from you guys? Or did I misunderstand you? Uh-oh, you guys are muted. I can't hear you.
No,
No.
we're fine. That's a technical workaround. Ignore that.
Okay. Okay, so maybe I misunderstood. Did you say, I thought I wrote a note here that you said that on our next agenda, you would be talking about the revitalization project?
I don't recall the description.
Oh, no, I misunderstood. Okay, I misunderstood then. Okay, well, my only question is, when I was at the road that runs along Yokes there and goes past the hub, I was at church this last couple of weeks ago, and I realized, oh my goodness, there's a whole coffee house in here, and a place for, they were offering a lot of things besides the wrestling stuff. And I said, well, gee, I never noticed that was there. And I said, she goes, oh, well, there's a sign right there. And I looked up and I was like, oh, that's a sign. You couldn't even tell. So my question is, as an artist and as a person on the Arts Council, what kind of budget is in place, I guess, for perhaps improving the signage along, or allow, what kind of parameters are in place that would allow them to improve the signage? Because she says, well, that's what Airway Heights will let us do. And I thought, really? I don't know. I don't think that's accurate. That's not necessarily something that you have to address right now or discuss right now. It was just something that came up, and as I've been going around and introducing myself and meeting people, that was one of the things that just kind of struck me. It's like, well, is there a limitation on what signs can look like, or how big they can be, or, I just.
Yes to all of that.
Of course. Okay. Well, that's not something we have to weigh in on here. It was just one of those things I wanted to mention at our meeting that perhaps we can look at if you were going to discuss it in the future. Get some answers on that.
Chris has got a great mural inside there when you were in the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the wall across from the counter.
Okay, well, yeah, this was a sign that it's kind of a rusty looking thing that's sticking up, and it looked like there were 3 other signs on it for some buildings there. But anyway, I don't know the whole story about it. I just was curious as to how that worked in the city.
Yeah, in Washington State, as in most of the nation, signage is regulated as a development standard. And the number of signs, size of signs, and the type of signs are all regulated based on zoning. So, the more permissive zones have more signage, the less permissive signs have less. And so that's why you don't see signs in residential neighborhoods, as an example.
Right. No, I understand that. I wondered if the city itself had its own.
Yes, we do have what's called a sign zoning code standard.
Is that in the city, in the codes?
Yep, you can look at it online.
Okay, yeah, I'll look it up.
That's a good one.
What?
Yeah, I'll look it up. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I don't think we have any commissioner reports or anything. Do we have any staff reports to before deciding on the next meeting time?
Yeah, just real quick, I think that Zach was working to pop it up. He can go back to it, which is to show you the brand new website.
Oh, I noticed the new logo and stuff on the document and stuff this time. It's pretty sharp looking, so.
Yeah, it's significantly an improvement over the last website we had, and Zach worked on this for about a year with a firm here locally to update the website. So all of the imagery is taken locally, so it's more of a flavor of what Airway Heights is really like. It's more oriented to the user, so it gets away from using terminology or names that people would be familiar with. So if you wanted to do a utility bill payment, it helps you get there right away. Or if you wanted to know more about community resource, you could get to that right away. And of course, it does have direct information about all of the commissions. So you're in there now, along with information about the role. There's a little piece of art that came out of a project that Zach and I worked on summer before last, and we can certainly add more of that as we move forward. So it's meant to help create access to all of these functions with our community members, create transparency around government, and just be easier to use. So please go in, click around, take a look at it. The logo is brand new. It went through an extensive process to create it. And I think that we're going to be doing a soft launch. This just came out on Wednesday afternoon, but we'll be doing some publicity about the website, and we'll also be soft launching the new logo as we move forward. So it's a whole new image of Airway Heights as a community. So we're pretty happy with it as we move forward, and re-envisioning what our community looks like for people.
That's
I know
great.
that. Yeah, that website is awesome. Great work.
Where do I find the city code?
Zach can show you real quick.
Where is it? Anyway,
Wow.
your building department. city
Anytime if you just want to go Airway Heights Municipal Code, it'll come
Uh-huh.
right up at
I
the top
can-
of your search.
No, it looks really good. I love it. I love the layout and I like photography. It looks wonderful. That's really gives it a nice personal touch. And everything seems to be working really well, which makes it nice, especially on a new launch like that. You want to make sure everything is all your links. Steph, great job. Great job. I'll put that on the record.
Wow.
Yeah, nice work, Zach. That looks fantastic.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it was the firm we worked with did a great job on the site, and we're really happy with the outcome. We've got a couple more pieces we're working on, making sure it looks and works really great on mobile right now. So the mobile site's getting refined. We're hoping to have that done by sometime in April, and then we are working on a back end page for the employees to help make, transferring large documents and HR documentation and all that sort of stuff a little more easier on our end. But yeah, we're really happy with how it turned out.
Well done. Yeah, I like that. Let's see. No, that's not too bad.
Very nicely done.
The phone app doesn't add, it comes up looking, it looks pretty good, actually.
Yeah, we're working on some tweaks. It looks okay right now. One of the main things we want to do is essentially allow you to save it as a phone app, and it'll allow you to do push notifications. So if we have like an emergency water shut off or something like that, it'll go straight to your phone. So.
Oh, and online utility payments, we'll be able to do that on our phone too, huh?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for letting us show this to you first, and you get to experience that. And those are really like all the updates that we have right now. We do need to see what our next meeting date is. I think this was
Yep.
tentative date to make sure it was going to work out for Cosette because we're changing schedules. We just need to look forward of what you would want your next meeting to be.
Yep, I think that's it. And then yeah, we can get on. So, but yeah, I think do Mondays work better for you, Cosette? Is that
Right now they do. I'm sorry, I have to apologize to the committee because I teach on a quarterly system, so it changes every quarter. So
you
right
don't
now
have to
Monday,
apologize for anything.
but thank you. I appreciate your patience with me. And yeah, the schedule is set by our department. So I think right now Mondays still work, but I can be flexible a little bit maybe next quarter if this isn't working for people.
It works for me all right. What are everybody else's thoughts on Mondays at this same time?
It's fine with me.
It normally works for me.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay, well, we'll reserve this space then, or the next meeting is going to be on April 10th. And it would be at the same time here, which starts at 2 o'clock.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. That was an awesome discussion, and I really feel like we're moving places. So. And we can call this meeting adjourned at 3:36.
All right, great. Stay dry, stay warm.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.